right, welcome to the last two invertebrates that we will be learning about for invertebrate life cycles this week. Tomorrow we're going to be doing a quick review, and then I'm going to be introducing a special activity for you to do. There is a reason why I have not chosen some of the other insects or arthropods that you all know and love, for example, spiders, and you will have to wait until tomorrow to find out. So let's get going with ants and mealworms. So we're starting with ants, and if the ants all looked like this cute little guy here, I would probably really like them. But right now I just find them a little bit annoying, and I don't want them crawling on me, but you know, he's adorable. So we know, most of us know what an ant is. It's an insect, it's very small, and it's usually red, brown, or black in color. There are thousands of species of ants, and they are found all over the world. And a lot of them actually live in rainforests. I bet if you went outside your house, or even in your garden, you would probably find some ants pretty quickly. They are everywhere. They live in a colony, which is a large group of related ants. So basically, they are brothers and sisters, and they all live together. And it is a very social insect, and the colony is made up of the queen, the workers, the soldiers, and male ants. So ant colonies, as I said, ants are social insects, and they live in large colonies, and each colony has a queen, and the queen actually begins her life with wings. She flies to a nice spot where she then lays her eggs, and then she loses her wings, and all she does for the rest of her life is lay eggs, which sounds pretty boring, the poor queen. But she's called the queen, so maybe she likes that title, I don't know. Then we have the workers, and you can actually see the picture of the different sizes down here. So the workers are wingless female ants, and they are the queen's daughters. They collect food, and they feed, defend, and enlarge the colony, so they make it bigger. So they dig like the ant holes and things like that. And actually most ants in the colony are workers. Then we have the soldiers, and they are large workers. They are also females. These females, they can't have babies. The worker females also can't have babies. Only the queen gets to lay eggs. That's her job. And the soldiers defend the colony and raid the other colonies in order to capture slaves. Kind of like, I don't know, kind of like a pirate. They raid other colonies to get their food and to get other workers to help them. Okay? And then there are the males, and they are very small ants, and they have wings, but they just kind of hang around. They don't do a lot. So the female workers for ants, they are very busy, and they basically take care of everything. Okay? The ant body, as we know, an ant is an insect, and it has 6 legs, which you can see in the picture. The hard exoskeleton. It has 2 antennae, which is typical, 2 eyes, and the body part that has the head, the thorax, and the abdomen. So just like all of the other insects that we have seen this week. So we're going to talk about the life cycle of the ant now, and we're starting with the eggs, which is stage 1. So the queen ant lays all of the eggs from the colony, which hatch into tiny larvae, which is from the small white oval-shaped eggs. And you can see the eggs in the picture there. They're pretty small, especially because an ant is pretty small. The eggs are laid in the colony, so the colony protects the eggs. And the queen can lay thousands of eggs every day. An interesting fact is that the queen doesn't eat. She literally just survives in what's already in her body and like the moisture or water around her. So she kind of like sucks it up from the ground or like from the air, like a straw kind of, and that's it. She doesn't eat food. She literally just lives on what's already in her body and the moisture or water around her. Then we have stage 2, which is the larva stage. And larvae hatch from the tiny egg, so you can see some of the larvae. They're pretty small, okay? They have no eyes or legs, and they spend their time as a larva. They wiggle around and open their mouths for food. They are white, and they molt, which, remember, that means that they shed their skin like a snake many times during this stage of their lives. And most of the larvae will become worker ants, because if you remember from the colony page, most of the ants that live in the colony are worker ants. Then we have the pupa stage, and the top one kind of looks like a weird alien. But the larvae, they pupate, or they turn into pupa, by spinning a white silk-like cocoon around themselves against a solid object, like a wall of a chamber, kind of like what a butterfly does. You know, it puts itself on a very sturdy branch or something like that. The pupa does not eat, and it doesn't move, okay? The adult ants emerge from the cocoons. They are usually light in color, and then they darken over time. And the first batch of ants that hatch, they're normally smaller since they have not been fed as much. So if it's a new colony, you'll have smaller ants in size, and then they grow bigger because they eat more, because there'll be more workers to bring them food. And then we have the stage 4, which is adult. And if the adult ant is a female, then she either becomes a worker or a soldier, depending on her size. Remember that the adult male has small wings, but he just basically hangs out, doesn't do a lot. And the most common ant in the colony is a worker, and they feed, defend, and make the colony bigger. Okay, so they make it have more space. And the queen just hangs out and just lays more eggs, thousands of eggs every day. That's all she does. Okay, so quick review. Remember that the life cycle of an ant starts with eggs, then it goes to larva, then it goes to pupa, and then to this adorable adult ant in the corner there. So next up, mealworms. I will admit the picture of the worm pile grossed me out. But then I found out that mealworms are not worms. They're actually beetles. I learned something today. It's pretty cool. So, like I said, the mealworm is not a worm. It is actually the larva stage, or grub, of the yellow mealworm beetle, which is also called the darkling beetle. And you can see the beetle there. So the grub, or the larva, looks a bit like a worm. The mealworm actually has 6, so it has tiny little 6 legs, and you can see them in the picture right here. Let me point them out to you. You can see the legs there. Both the larva and the beetle are nocturnal, and that means that they basically do everything at night, but they can also be active during the day. And the larva, which is this, that is what hatches out of the eggs, and they grow a lot in the larva stage of their life. So just like in any other insect, it has 6 jointed legs, it has a hard exoskeleton, it has 2 antennae, 2 eyes, and the head, thorax, and abdomen. I think you are starting to see the important body parts of an insect, because all of the insects that we've looked at have basically had a head, thorax, and abdomen, 6 legs, a hard exoskeleton, 2 antennae, and 2 compound eyes. Interestingly enough, this beetle has a mandible, which is like this part here, okay? Kind of like what Loki's helmet looks like if you watch Thor, like Miss K does. Just a fun fact. They reminded me of it. All right, let's keep going and look at the life cycle of a mealworm. So, again, we start at stage 1, which are eggs, and the egg is tiny. So the female beetle lays hundreds of white oval-shaped eggs, and they hatch into tiny mealworms, which you'll see on the next slide. And they take about 4 to 19 days for the eggs to hatch, and the eggs are super tiny. They are about 2 millimeters long. So if you look at a ruler, you can maybe see the 2 millimeters if you have millimeters on there. They are super tiny, they are white and bean shaped. This is the best picture that I could get of mealworm eggs. So you can see how tiny they are. That is the arrow pointing to them. So they are super tiny, okay? They are very, very small. Literally, if you look at the full stop or period at the end of this sentence, which is right here, that is how small they are. So yeah, pretty small. And the female beetle can lay up to 500 eggs during her adulthood. So a lot of eggs, very small eggs. Then we have the mealworm, which is this guy right here, kind of creepy, gross looking thing. And this is the larva stage, which is stage 2. And basically, the mealworm eats a lot of food during this time, and it also molts or sheds its exoskeleton, or I guess skin, as we would call it, many times as it grows. And they're normally golden yellow, kind of like this guy is, with brown bands, again, kind of like this guy. And they have 12 body segments, and body segments is just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, probably 11, 12. So just the different sections of their body. And then you can see their legs here at the start, and the 2 antennae. You can't really see those, but maybe right there. So then we have the pupa stage, which is stage 3. And this is when it goes through a transformation, which is also called metamorphosis. Like the Uncle Jack videos that we saw last week, and I think this week too, with the butterfly. This stage lasts 2 to 3 weeks indoors, because actually people will grow them. But if it happens in the winter outside in the cold, it can actually take 9 months for the pupa to turn into the beetle. So if it's inside, it's normally 2 to 3 weeks, and as long as it's warm-ish. And then if it's outside and really cold, it can take 9 months. The pupa does not eat and basically doesn't really move, and that's because it's really busy transforming into a beetle. So if you touch it, it might twitch because it's like, leave me alone, kind of like maybe what you do when your mom and dad try to wake you up in the morning. You're like, no, I don't want to get up. Probably like that. It's like, leave me alone. And then it is creamy white in color with a pointed tail, and a large rounded head there. And then it becomes an adult, stage 4. So eventually a white darkling beetle will emerge from the pupa, and it will turn brown and then almost black. So this one you can see is kind of like dark brown, black color. And the adult only lives for a few months, and it loves to eat like vegetation and grains, especially like vegetation that is going bad. So it eats like the gross, rotten stuff, kind of. And then it just continues the life cycle by laying more eggs. And that's what it does. It eats the disgusting, gross, like rotten stuff, and it lays eggs. That's his job as an adult. So just to review, we start off with the egg, then we go to the larva, which is the mealworm, then we have the pupa stage, and then we have the adult darkling beetle. That's it. If you want to know more, there are a few videos. The beetle one is just on beetles in general, but there were 3 ant videos if you're interested in learning more about ants. And then there's one easy activity if you have this stuff at home. Again, it's optional. You don't have to try it, but if you feel like being crafty today, then you are more than welcome to give it a try. The webpage link is there. And yeah, remember, if you do try it out, send me a picture. I'd love to see it. Otherwise, I will see you back here tomorrow for your review of invertebrate life cycles.